Before we start, I want to thank our first speaker this morning for an amazing talk. I have heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of talks on CD and live, and I have to say, Robert, that was one of the most powerful and most moving presentations I've ever heard in my life. And I was very, very blessed to actually to hear Robert speak earlier just this year. And at the time, I'd only been married for 4 months, and so I was already an expert. I thought I knew everything, and after that talk, Robert had a huge impact on me from his talk earlier this year, and very, very interestingly, the notes that I took from Robert's talk when I heard him speak earlier this year, they led me to my knees in prayer and to ask, well, what type of man do I want to be? I'm not a father yet, but I remember him saying that story about when he asked his son, I said, I don't want to be an okay dad in the future. I don't want to be an okay husband. I want to be a great husband. And how can I start living better now in my own marriage? And so much of what I'm going to share today is the fruit of prayer that has stemmed from Robert Falzon's talk. And so I really want to thank you, Robert, for your amazing impact on so many of the men in Australia, but especially for mine. So before we begin, let's start with a short prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, come. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, and enkindle in them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, O Lord, and they shall be created, and you shall renew the face of the earth. Saint Joseph, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So from a very young man, I was probably about 7 years old, I asked my older brother Jared, who was 10 at the time, I said, Jared, I want to ask you a question. I want you to be the best man at my wedding. And about 10 months ago, I got married. My wife's the only woman that they let in the room today. There she is on the poster over there, okay? And it was an amazing day, and my older brother gave a great speech because he had about 15 years to work on it. But I always had these big emotional dreams for my life. For as long as I can remember, I'd always wanted to get married and to find a woman to share my life with. Now, when we have dreams. When we have dreams, and I often say this, what's the difference between a dream and a wish? Well, a wish, you say it once a year when it's your birthday, and a wish is we make a wish and we blow out the candle, and we don't actually take any major steps towards making that wish happen. A wish is something we hope will happen on its own, but having a dream is something that you say, I long for this, I want to see this come to fruition in my life, and so I'm going to make goals and small things I can do every day to achieve that dream. And so when we have dreams, they inspire us to work very hard. When you've got a dream and you know, well, this is what I want to achieve, it drives you, and it will drive you to push through obstacles. It will drive you to endure whatever suffering may be involved in that process, but you've got your eye on the prize, so you're willing to work hard. Now, as a young man, there were many things I did to prepare for my marriage. I would write love letters to my future wife before I even met her. I'd be out at parties, and I can still remember the day. There was a lady, a girl in a red dress at one of my year 10 high school dances, and the boy said, oh, you should go and hook up with her, go and dance with her. They said that she likes you. It must have been my dance moves or something that got her interested. And I remember this day, and I said to my mates, look, I'm not interested in hooking up and dancing with a girl I don't even know. I said, I want to save a kiss for love. And I remember getting teased that night, and you're such a prude. And I got teased on that next Monday coming back to school. But ultimately, it was that dream of wanting to get married, of wanting to prepare to be the best possible man I could be for my future wife, that led me to say no to that. And I went home that night and I wrote a letter. and I said, out of love for you, I didn't hook up with this girl, I didn't dance with this girl tonight, because I'm hoping and praying that if you were in the same situation as I was tonight, that you would have done the same for me. And I was very blessed to find out that when I did get married, just under a year ago, my wife, in many ways, had preserved herself for me in the same way that I had for her. But when I got married last October, I had the shock of marriage, which was that I couldn't believe how early on in my marriage, as soon as we got home from our honeymoon from Europe, I couldn't believe how quickly I already slipped into being, like extremely comfortable. Straight away, I wasn't being intentional about saying hello to my wife every afternoon, or being intentional about saying good morning to my wife every day. I couldn't believe already how fast this ease just kind of slipped into my marriage. Now, and this is because our life and our work and the things we all have on our schedule, they always seem to be in the moment more important and more urgent than the relationships in our life. And I love what Robert, it was a great way to lead into this talk. But it always seems to be that our wives, so to speak, never make the schedule. We've got all the things that we need to do in that day, and everything appears to be more important and more urgent than intimacy, than forming and working at forming a strong relationship with our wife or with our children, if you have children. We don't see the long-term effects of being unintentional about encountering our wife every day. We don't see the long-term effects of that. And oftentimes, if a marriage does end in divorce, that divorce started 15 years ago, right? Where the husband or the wife they got too comfortable in their marriage, and that intimacy and the love started dying before they could even realize there's a lack of intimacy or a loss of intimacy in this marriage. Relationships really are the most important thing in our life. Okay, again, as Robert said in his talk. In fact, life is meaningless. Life is meaningless unless we experience great relationships. We could almost say life is as good as our best relationship. Yeah? Life is as good as our best relationship. We all know this, right? My work mainly is with young adults, right? So teenagers and young adults. That's why I was very honoured to be asked to speak today, with these other fantastic speakers. But really, I meet so many young men, and they meet the girl, and they're all excited about this new girl they've met. They tell me all the things about this girl that they love so much, and then, Simon, we went on a date and it was amazing, and now we're actually dating, and it's going really, really well. And when the relationship is up, then they're up. But I can tell the second that they walk into a talk, or I meet them, or they ring me, I can tell immediately if the relationship is down. Okay, our relationships have an immediate impact on our mood, on the way that we act, on the way that we behave. When our relationships are up, our life is up. When our relationships are down, our life can feel down. So life is meaningless without great relationships. So what is a great relationship? How can we experience authentic intimacy in our relationships? Because if we cannot find authentic intimacy in our relationships, our life will become empty. We will lack meaning and drive and energy in our everyday life. So what is intimacy? Intimacy is not how close two people are together. Intimacy is not a sexual act, right? There's a sex myth, right, that says, well, if we're kissing, if we're hooking up, if we're having sex, even within a marriage, okay, if we're sleeping together, okay, then, if at least one of us isn't on the lounge, okay, then obviously my marriage is intimate and is going great. But this is false, right? There's a sex myth that says as long as I'm being physically intimate with my wife, then our relationship is great. But we're overlooking the often more essential, foundational aspects of intimacy: emotional, spiritual. Okay, are we taking the time to make a spiritual and emotional link with our wives every day, with our children every single day? Intimacy is to be completely known, right? To love is to be vulnerable, right? To be intimate is to be vulnerable. To be intimate means with my wife, I must be willing to take off my masks, to stop pretending that I've got my life all together, that I'm perfect, and let her in on the real Simon, on that weak, sinful Simon, right? And allow her to love me in my weakness, just as I am, right? As a wounded, sinful man. And we can only experience intimacy to the extent that the other person that we are in relationship with, so in this case our wife for many of us, is willing to accept us for who we are, to love us for who we are, and then to be vulnerable back to us and to share themselves with us. And then we have that incredible opportunity when we have been invited into the intimacy of our wife's interior life to love them in their weakness as well. Intimacy is to be completely known. Okay, this is a great desire of the human heart, is to be loved and to be known. But many of us, the reason why many of us don't experience great marriages, great relationships, or don't experience authentic intimacy in our lives is because we are scared to death of being vulnerable. We are actually scared to death of the very thing that we long for the most. We long for intimacy, we long to be loved and to be known, but we know that in order to get there, we must risk. We must risk putting our weakness on display, okay, and that can often seem too painful. So we don't want to get too personal. We don't want to let our conversation move from facts to feelings. Yeah? We don't want to let our conversation move from the weather to how I'm feeling at the moment, to how my life is actually moving at the moment. So intimacy is scary because it means we've got to let our guard down and be ourselves to our wife, but it is essential for a life fully alive, to not merely to exist, but to be fully alive. So I want to run through, in the 35 minutes we've got, 7 points that I believe are key for our relationships to experience or authentic intimacy in our life. The first point is this: choose to have a great relationship. A great relationship is as rare to find as it is hard to achieve. A great relationship is as rare to find as it is hard to achieve. Now, when I was a young man, right, I'm still a pretty young man, I would hope to think. But when I was in my teen years, I went on a silent retreat when I was 18 years old, and I decided I wanted to write out this list of things that I wanted in my future wife. Right, so I'm writing all these things down. She's got to have this and she's got to have this. I wrote down 60 things that I wanted in a future wife, right? Then I said, okay, what kind of marriage do I want to have one day? What level of intimacy do I want to have? What do I want to do when I get married? Do I want to go overseas? Do I this and that? What kind of job do I want to have? Now, just as a bit of a side note, before I did propose to my wife, I obviously went over my checklist to make sure she was the right one for me. And I had to add another 80 qualities to my list that I hadn't even thought of. So my wife was just, she's not a saint, but she's close to it. But obviously this list of mine wasn't, okay, she's not, obviously, I've got to be careful because my father-in-law was in the room, okay? She really is a saint. She really is. She is the best one. But what I was looking for, obviously, was I was looking for someone that's not perfect, because they don't exist, but someone that was striving every day for all these virtues. And I sensed that in my wife now, that she was striving every day to attain these virtues in her life. And that's what really drew me into her. But I spent a lot of time thinking, what kind of relationship do I want to have? Now, for those people that have amazing relationships, okay, maybe, maybe a part of it is in their upbringing. Maybe they were exposed to great speakers like Robert Falzon, okay? God expects a lot from me because I was exposed to Robert Falzon at a very young age. Some of you in the room today may have just heard Robert for the first time today, okay? And you've been hit with what I was hit with 4 months ago. But God expects a lot from me because I've been exposed to a lot. Okay, Luke 12:38, to whom much is given, much will be expected. And I feel that is very much the case in my life. But those who have amazing relationships are not the ones that just got everything that they wanted. They are the ones that chose to have a great relationship. They're the ones that chose, I'm going to work every single day at building intimacy in my relationship. For those of you in the room that may be single, I would encourage you, have a think about this very sincerely in prayer. What kind of marriage do I want to have? What kind of a spouse do I want to marry? I meet so many young people that will jump from girl to girl to girl, and I'll say, well, hang on a second, what was different between, girl March than April, right? One guy's honest answer to me was nothing. There was no honest difference between the girl he dated in March and the girl that he dated in April. And so I'm a big believer in this, is that we need to know, well, what kind of a person would we hope to marry one day? Because that will guide the whole process of our discernment. And well, is this the kind of woman that I do want to be with? And then I can discern once I'm getting to know that girl more. If you're married right now, and that's probably most of us in the room, does your relationship right now look the way you hoped it would look before you got married? If it doesn't look the way that you hoped it would look, why? Why doesn't it look the way that you wanted it to look? And obviously there are things that will be out of our control. But the important thing is to turn to yourself and say, well, when did I become comfortable? When did I stop being intentional about even a simple, I'm going to make sure that when I get home from work, I'm going to intentionally greet my wife. Look her in the eye, give her a hug, give her a kiss, greet my wife every day. It could be as simple as that. When did we stop? When did we stop being intentional about saying hello when we get home from work? Okay, or maybe you're sitting here saying, well, you know what? I have no idea whether the marriage I have right now is what I really wanted, because maybe I never actually stopped to think about what kind of marriage I ever wanted. Maybe marriage just slipped into my life like everything else that slipped into my life. I didn't actively work at it. I just kind of got there. I just kind of appeared here and I'm married. We can't just have similar interests. We need a similar purpose. Again, I'm meeting a lot of young men, and one of the first things they say, we have so much alike. We listen to the same music, we like the same sport, we grew up in the same area, to which I think that's all great, okay, but I would hope there's a similar purpose. What do you think marriage is? What position does God have in your life? We've got to think beyond just the similar interests. We need a similar purpose. What is the mission statement of your marriage? What are you and your wife working at together every single day to achieve? Do you have a mission statement in your marriage? Maybe think about what is the goal of your marriage together? Okay, it's really as simple as this. The goal of marriage is to become saints. The goal of marriage is for you to get your wife to heaven and drag as many kids as you can with you, right? Your goal is to bring your wife into closer relationship with Jesus Christ, because you want heaven for your wife, I hope. And your wife That is the mission statement of my marriage. Every day I get up, I look at my wife and say, okay, I don't actually do this, but this is the concept, right? How can I bring my wife closer to God together? How in our marriage can we achieve that together? Now, maybe it might be an idea. Okay, if you don't feel there's a mission statement to your marriage, or maybe the goal of heaven has never really been made clear in your marriage with you and your wife. I would encourage you today, go home, organise a date this week, take your wife out for a nice meal, and ask, okay, where are we going? Have we got our eyes set on heaven? Because from today forward, I want to make that. I'm going to commit to getting you to heaven every day from here on in. And are you with me on this? Are you on the same page? I want to give you permission to call out my sin with love, okay? But I want to give you permission, okay, to guide me to heaven. And would you allow me that same honor? Can we begin having a date once a month, whatever it is? Let's talk about how are we building a love for Jesus within us in our marriage every day. So when we have a similar purpose, when we have a mission statement, okay, a purpose that is common to both of us, one that we revisit as a couple frequently, that builds intimacy. That in itself builds intimacy. When you're on the same page with the big picture stuff, it builds intimacy in your relationship. The second point, make time for what's important. I'm just going to, I had my own little version of what I wanted to say here, but I'm not even going to bother saying it. I want to reiterate what Robert Falzon said. Do that timetable thing, TV versus God, my wife, and my children. That is a very powerful thought right there. How much time do we really make for the things that are important to us? I read a great book recently, and one of the things that it asked me to do was to write a timetable, write down where I would order these things in my life. God, my spouse, my children, I don't have any yet, right? My work, my hobbies, and my friends. And I wrote that down, and I put God at the top, and I put my wife's number second, and then most of us think work is at the bottom, and then it said, okay, now go along all those things and write down how many hours you give to all those things each week, and highlight them ideally in a separate colour. And I did this, and what my priorities were in my head were the complete opposite to what my priorities were in my real life, and where I actually gave my time and spent my time. And so I think we give time to what is most important to us. And so when I did that exercise, I realized that it's never a time problem. And none of us in the room can say, I don't have time to spend special time each week with my wife. None of us can say, I don't have time to spend great, individual one-on-one time with each of my kids. None of us can say that. We all have been given the same hours in each day. If we're honest with ourselves, we should really say, I lack the love to make this a priority in my day. Let's be real. I lack the love for my wife to make her a priority in my day. I lack the love for my children to make them a priority in my day. That's really important. Now, I am convinced that relationships are the most important things in our life, but they almost never appear to be urgent. Yeah, they never appear to be as urgent as that work deadline we may have, or the things that we've been meaning to do around the house, or whatever it may be. Often the most important things in life don't seem urgent in the moment, but intimacy is the most urgent thing in your life right now. Building a great marriage and building a great family is the most urgent, most important thing in your life. And I want to thank Robert again for being so vulnerable about that experience with his son. I think that's a really great point. If nothing is more important in our life than intimacy, I want to offer you this. Have a 15-minute tea or coffee or a juice or whatever you drink, right? Every day with your wife. A 15-minute coffee every day with your wife. Who did I learn this from? Shabel Reish. Okay, a great friend of mine. I don't know where he's gone. Okay, I had the absolute honour of working with, and I'm still working with Shabel quite closely in our partnering in our ministries. But back 4 or 5 years ago, when the office was in his lounge room, I had a front row seat to how an incredible man of God loved his wife. And I can't tell you, that was like one of my major preps for marriage, was just being able to have a front row seat in the Reish family home. And every day Shabel would get home and I'd be in the office. He'd come and say a quick hello to me, and then he'd say, very important, I'm sorry, all right, I'm just going to go and have my coffee with Christine. I'll come back later. And he would put the kids out the back in like a playroom. He'd make a coffee for Christine, and they'd go and sit out the front porch and have a coffee every day. Now, obviously, when I say Shabel had a coffee with Christine every day, of course there were days where circumstances wouldn't have let that happen. But in the Reish family home, it was out of the norm for that not to happen. It was not normal for them not to have a coffee. And that taught me a big lesson. To make 15 minutes of intentional time for our wife every single evening, finding out how their day was, etc. A 2-hour date once a week, right? A 2-hour date night once a week, to take time out with your wife if possible. 1 day a month and 1 weekend away every year. Okay, that for me, when I read that in this book, I thought, you know what, this is something that I can keep, that I can keep myself kind of on track with. It's something I can measure. And you know what's been exciting? It's given me an opportunity every single month to sit my wife down and plan our day out together as a couple. Okay, this month we went to the zoo. Great day, right? I was talking to the seals. I was trying to get them to do tricks. They wouldn't listen to me, right? But we just walked around. You know, we caught the train in Manly. You know, it was an amazing day. And even having something like that, and I enjoy taking time to plan that. Now, when I know I've got to book a weekend away sometime this year, I'm going to have fun planning that. Things like that have been so helpful for me, and I only really read this book about 3 or 4 months ago. Again, I don't want to comment too much on the work aspects as being something that can take us away from family, because I think we already heard that this morning. But I remember I was playing sport with a young 9-year-old boy one day, and you know, as I'm talking to this boy, I'm just trying to get to know him. I'm talking to him about his family and everything like that. And I said, you're really good at sport. You know, I said, who do you play with your dad a lot? You know, do you have your older brother? Do you play with him a lot? And he goes, oh, no, not really. He said, you know, normally when I ask Dad to come and play sport, he'll say yes, and you know, we'll start kicking the ball around, but then 1 second, and he answers the phone, and he'll walk off for 10 minutes, and he comes back. And then he starts playing again, and then he's telling me what I'm doing wrong, so I don't, you know, it starts to not get fun. Then he answers the phone again and walks off, and he goes, and eventually he'll answer the phone for the 2nd or 3rd time, and I'll just walk inside. I'm over it. And I thought, and I read a stat, the average dad spends 15 minutes in conversation with his children each week. 15 minutes in conversation with his children each week. Now, in a recent book Pope Francis wrote, he encouraged mums and dads to waste time with their kids. He's not saying your kids are a waste of time. He's saying have carefree timelessness with your children, as in, you know, not constantly watching the clock, thinking, okay, when can this be over so I can get back to my important stuff? Or when can this be over so I can get back to the TV or do what I want to do? But to have a sense of a carefree, timelessness attitude towards your children and to your wife as well. Waste time with the people that are most important to you. Okay, now that's not to say, okay, you know, we can't actually plan whatever we're going to do on that day. Of course, it takes to plan a day shows you've taken an initiative. Okay, that's an act of love to your wife to begin with by showing I've taken the time to plan something interesting and fun for us to do today on this date. But what it is getting at is to make time slots in our day to spend with the people that are most important to us. And spend time feeding your own soul with the things that are going to make you happier, with the things that are going to make you in a better position to love your wife and to love your children. Okay, what are the things that give energy to your soul? Okay, because as someone that has a great relationship, okay, they pour energy into the people around them. People that have great relationships, that have got intimate relationships, they pour energy into other people. Okay, things like prayer. Okay, where do we make time for prayer in our own life? Because I can promise us, it is we only love our wives to the extent that we're allowing Christ to love them through us. If we're not praying, all we have to offer our wives is ourselves. Okay, but when we're going to Mass, when we're spending time in prayer, in adoration, we're filling ourselves up with God's love, and then we have something to pour out of ourselves into our wife. Point number 3, have meaningful conversation. Have great conversation. Do you whinge and complain? Do you whinge and complain? Do you suck the energy out of people around you, or do you give energy to the people around you? Okay, one thing, I remember I had a job at a gym about 5 or 6 years ago, and this particular girl that I worked with, she would walk in and I could almost just say, okay, so what's wrong today? Like what upset you last night? Like it was just constant whinging, complaining, my life's hopeless, I'm miserable, right? It sucks any enthusiasm out of the people around you and the people in your life. Okay, home, my mum always used to say, right? Your home is a safe haven. You'll go to school, you'll go to work, and people are going to be rough on you. People are going to be harsh on you. High school is ruthless today, right? The more work I'm doing in high school is ruthless. And my mum always said, home is a place where no one should be nagging at each other. No one's putting each other down. It's a place where you affirm and love the other person. It's not the time to whinge and to complain. It's the time to give energy to the people that you love. So how do we learn to have great conversations? Ask great questions. How do you have great conversation? Ask great questions. And then listen attentively to your wife, or listen attentively to your son or daughter. Okay, Pope Francis said in his recent encyclical on marriage, he said, so much harm is done when we stop looking at the other person. Okay, Saint John Paul II talked about the interior gaze, where we look into the soul of the person we're in front of, and you know what? There's no one else in the world at that time. Okay, what Saint John Paul? Everyone said this about Saint John Paul II. Everyone said it about Saint Teresa of Calcutta. When you were in her presence, or when you were in his presence, I was the only person in the world. Okay, how present are we? Okay, when we ask a question, are we just asking how was your day, so they can start talking and we'll go back to the TV? Or are we saying, how is your day, because I really, really care how you feel today? That's a big difference. So ask great questions and then listen attentively. Okay, that interior gaze, looking into the eyes of the person we're talking to and giving them our 100% love and attention. Be vulnerable when you're asked how your day was. The best way to ruin a great conversation from happening, the best way to kill any possible intimacy from forming in your marriage is when your wife asks you how your day was, you say it was good. That is the worst possible answer we can give. One word answers. Do you know what they tell our wife or the people anyone that we're speaking to? I really don't care enough about you to go into it. I really don't care enough about this conversation to make it actually go any further. One word answers speak a very firm language and message to our wife that says, I do not want to talk right now. And when this happens every day, maybe we wonder why that question may just stop being asked. And then maybe we think, okay, well, maybe she doesn't care about me, I don't care about her, and we're happy just not caring about each other. It doesn't take long for this to become a habit. So let's not just share facts about our day, let's share our feelings as well. Don't just share what happened in your day, share how that thing made you feel. Okay, and don't just ask your wife, okay, what did you do today? But if she says something that happened that day, well then press into that. Okay, how did that make you feel? Okay, finding ways to show I really care about this conversation. I want it to flow. I want us to go deeper. Okay, we can become, okay, no one is born a great conversationalist, right? We need to work at learning to find ways, okay, to encourage great intimate conversation. Conversationalists have a love of learning. Conversationalists have a love of learning. Okay, people that are great conversationalists, they have interests in many, many things. Okay, that they can talk to people about many, many things. Tough question to ask. Are you boring to talk to? Are there a lot of things on your mind that you can talk about, that you're able to talk about? I want to encourage you. Okay, if conversationalists have a love of learning, even if you're not a great reader, even if you don't love reading, okay, please read 15 minutes a day. And thanks to Charbel, you've all got a head start, okay? You've got a fantastic book. This will literally change your life. This book right here. I'm not a biological father yet, okay? But I'm actually reading this book right now, and the amount of times I've had to close the book and say, wow, I've got to completely rethink my life after what I've just read here. It's a powerful book. 15 minutes a day, and then you've got something to say, well, this is what I learnt today. Can I share with you what I read about today? My wife and I love reading, right? We've got 400 books on our bookshelf, and we're constantly competing with who's read more, right? Right now, she's read a little bit more than I have, okay? But one of the first things I ask her every day is, what did you read about today and what did you learn? Sometimes our whole conversation over dinner is what struck her in the book that she read that day. Reading makes for great conversation. Okay, I've got to solve my phone, sorry. Okay, I'm on time. I've got to skip through a few things. Also, with great conversation, how do we speak to the people in our life? Are we harsh in the way that we speak to our wife and kids? Am I harsh on my kids in front of the whole audience of my family? Do I, or am I smart about the way that I want to teach my son or daughter something? Okay, one of the worst ways to teach someone is to yell at them in front of a whole group of people. Why? Because immediately, okay, their pride, okay, springs up and says, well, I don't want to be made to feel like an idiot in front of everyone. So they'll answer back. They'll try and say, oh, well, I didn't really do that, whatever it might be. How do you teach your children? Do you pull them aside and say, look, I think you know the way you did that, you could do this better, or whatever it may be? How do we speak? Are we harsh in the way that we teach our kids things? Are we harsh in the way that we deal with our wives? Or do we know how to affirm? Do we know how to affirm each other? One of the things I learnt from my dad's also in the room today. I've got my dad and my wife's dad in the room today. My dad flirts with my mum every single day, right? Just flirting all the time, right? I love it, right? I love it. And my mum loves it. My mum loves all the attention. But my dad really taught me from a very young age to praise your wife. That if I really do love my wife more than anyone in the world, how often do I praise her? And we all, okay, I'm one of 6 children, and all of us kids knew, okay, one thing we never ever had to worry about. We were secure in our father's love for our mother. We never ever had to question whether dad was unfaithful or whether mum was unfaithful. They proved their love for each other every single day. I saw a meme once that I loved. It said, I'm 51% husband, 49% dad. Right? That's so beautiful. That my dad always let us kids know we are secure in this family and we are secure in the love of my mum and dad because he proved every single day she is the number one person in his life. And we all grew strength from that, knowing that I am the fruit of a love that is very powerful and very intimate. Okay, so that was a really, thank you, Dad, okay, for that great teaching point there. I'm going to skip, sorry, I'm not going to have time to go through everything, okay. Point number 6, we'll jump quickly. Share your hopes and dreams with your spouse. How many of you, when you grew up, were told, get a safe job, just be safe, provide financially for your family, and if you've got crazy dreams, just do yourself a favour and just put those dreams out, right? God gave us these desires to be great men, right? As the talk earlier this morning said, our hearts long to be great men. We all have dreams that we really want to achieve. I remember speaking to a mum a few months ago, and she said, when I was a young lady, she said I could play every musical instrument you could possibly ask me to play. I was so artistic and musical, and I said, okay. I said, so what happened? Like, what are you doing now? And she said, it was always my dream to teach other people how to play music. And it was always my dream to go around the world and play music and be a gift of music to other people. And I said, okay. I said, so why aren't you doing that? She said, my mum and dad told me that dreams don't come true, and that I should go to university and get a good job and live a safe life. And I could see the pain in her face when she was saying this to me. We don't have dreams by accident, right? God gives you the desires of your heart. And he hopes that you'll follow the desires of your heart, because the deep longings and the dreams that you have are your vocation. He hopes that you will respond to those dreams, because when you follow those dreams, you will become, okay, the man that God hoped you to be and wanted you to be from when he actually created you. When did God speak to Saint Joseph? In his dreams, right? God spoke to Joseph through his dreams. We need to listen to the voice of God through our dreams. They speak directly to our heart. They speak directly to our vocation as men. So who do you want to be, and who does God want you to be? Because most likely, okay, they are the same thing. Who deep down you yearn to be is who God created you to be. Now, dreams bring focus. They bring focus, and they encourage us to set goals. Okay, not just dreams for ourselves, but dreams for our marriage as well. So I would encourage you, set goals that you can measure, okay, in achieving the dream of who you hope to be. Have a set of dreams for you as an individual, and then have a set of dreams for you and your wife as a married couple. Have dreams for your family. What are you working at together every day? Okay, there's so many dreams. There's There are emotional dreams. What kind of relationships do you want to have? Maybe your dreams are, from today, I want to spend 15 minutes having a coffee every afternoon with my wife. Okay? What about just maybe we've got dreams that we want to lose weight, we want to be healthier. Maybe I want to eat better. I'm going to take better care of my body. Spiritual dreams. What kind of man of God do I want to leave here today with the goal of being or working at? What kind of man do I want to be from here on in? There's financial goals, professional goals, artistic goals. There's so many different avenues where we can dream and say, okay, I want to work at this in my own life, but also I've got something I'm going to work in as a partner with my wife and achieve them together as a married couple. Okay, I've actually got a book that is a journal for all my dreaming, all the things I'm working at becoming every day, and I read over that dream journal every night before I go to bed. How close am I to this financial goal? How close am I getting to this artistic goal? Okay, I've ticked that off. I went to the zoo. That was one of the emotional goals of that day out with my wife. I did that. Okay, but then there's a whole list of things that every week when I go on my 2-hour date with my wife, we discuss our goals as a couple. How are our spiritual goals going as a couple? Okay, we want to pray more together. How are our goals for our body going? Are we losing weight? Are we exercising together? Okay, you name it. These things, they breed intimacy in our marriage and in the friendship of our love. We'll close with this point. Sorry, I haven't got time I always talk too much. We'll close with this point. We absolutely must draw strength from Christ in order to live like this. These are everything I've said today is just a wish, unless we choose to make them a dream. Unless we choose to make them a dream and set goals and work at them every day to become much better men and a much better husband who loves our wife more tenderly, more authentically, okay, with a much greater enthusiasm. We must draw strength from Christ. He gives himself to us completely at every mass. Okay, I remember my older brother would go to mass every morning before he would start work at about 6 a.m. And one day I said to him, Jared, you go to mass every single morning. I can't seem to get out of bed and go to mass every single day. And he said, Simon, do you believe that Jesus is in the Eucharist? I said, yes, I do believe that Jesus is in the Eucharist. And he said, hang on a second, you're telling me you believe that every time you go to mass, you do believe that Jesus is present in the Eucharist there, right in front of you? I said, yes, I do. I believe that. And he said, hang on a second. You're trying to tell me you believe that when you go to Mass, God appears on that altar and you can receive him into your life. Do you really believe that? And I said, I don't actually know anymore, after you're asking me the third time. And he goes, well, why did you say that answer? Why did you say I don't know? I said, because, well, I suppose if I'm honest with myself, if I really believed that God was there, that I'd be getting up and going to Mass every morning with you. And he said, great, that's really good. God is truly present on the altar every single day at Mass. We cannot love our wives without the grace of the Eucharist. Every grace I need to love my wife every day comes from the Eucharist I receive each morning. We must surrender our life to God and invite God in. It is only by totally surrendering ourselves to Christ that we will ever be able to truly achieve great intimate relationships. Thank you all very much for that.